During this presentation, many different types of incidents will occur in your community. Traffic accidents, fires, medical calls, and other type of emergencies. And all those incidents will be handled utilizing the incident command system. Some of these incidents may be resolved using different types or different forms of the incident command system. Also, some of these incidents, depending on the community, could be resolved without using the incident command system. But the important thing to remember is the incident is resolved. It's important to remember in some incidents, ICS is vital that it's be used. In other incidents, you may only need to use certain components and functions of the incident command systems. In some incidents, you can get away without using the incident command system, but we want to take a realistic approach on how to utilize the incident command system. We've all been to different types of incidents where we have seen the incident command system used correctly, incorrectly, or not at all. We've seen individuals try to use the full-blown version when it's not applicable. We've seen other incidents when we really needed to use the incident command system to have a safe and efficient response. In this presentation, we will discuss the proper use of ICS when it's applicable and when it's not applicable to use the full-blown disaster mode. This course is designed as a food for thought discussion on the practical and realistic use of the incident command system. We've all been trained in the incident command system, but we may not know how to use it realistically, and we want to learn how to do that today. How can we apply the incident command system to our incident, big or small, because there are differences. A lot of the training materials that we're going to discuss today are readily available through the Federal Emergency Management Agency. In my full-time job, I'm an emergency management coordinator and an ICS instructor, so we will always stress the use of the incident command system in your training, planning, and exercises. But we also need to recognize, as you as the local agency, know your best resources, training, experience, and knowledge in your community. So it's up to you to decide how best to use the incident command system on any type of incident. Some of the myths associated with the incident command system is that, number one, it takes too many people to run an incident, which is incorrect. Also, look how complicated an incident command system chart is. We tend to focus on the chart too much, and we'll talk more about that. ICS is just for large incidents and disasters. That's another myth. You can use ICS on everyday, small, normal, routine incidents and large disaster-like incidents. Also, another myth is the incident command system is just for police and fire departments, and that's incorrect. All agencies and entities at all levels of government can utilize the incident command system on events and incidents. In one instance, one case that I'm familiar with that did not involve police and fire was an animal control issue. This was a hoarding incident with dozens of cats, dozens of dogs, and other animals that did require the incident command system because there were multiple agencies on scene, and this event went on for several days. So you can use ICS for non-emergency related type situations. In fact, it may come as a surprise to fire, EMS, and law enforcement other agencies that non-first responder agencies such as animal control, public health, and social services has been trained in the use of the incident command system. So this is important to remember that you can integrate with these agencies in a large scale or high impact type of incident. Anyone can be trained to use the incident command system effectively to manage any type of incident or event. ICS is a management system, a management tool, not just an organizational chart. It's also important to remember that ICS will enhance accountability and safety at any type of event and will bring order to chaos. Also, the important thing to remember, this does take continuing practice and training with the incident command system to allow you to apply it to any type of event. We're way past the point where we need to prove that ICS is a valuable tool, but we are at the point that we could do a much better job of using the ICS at a local level. The vast majority of incidents that occur in your community can typically be handled by one or two agencies on a daily basis. However, there are instances where multiple agencies with multiple responsibilities are brought together to respond and manage the scene. And an incident can have a wide variety of external influence, political consideration, environmental impact, cost implications, all these that can greatly impact your community. And the incident command system is the tool that will allow you to address all those needs. But the trick is that we need to use the incident command system in the right way to make that happen. The incident command system is the standardized, on-scene, all-hazards incident management system. It is based on basic military and business principles and practices. and it allows its users from different entities and agencies to integrate into one response structure. Also, the important thing to remember about ICS, it can grow or shrink based on your needs. And this flexibility makes it a valuable tool that you can use in your community. It's important to remember that the incident command system was not designed to make our life more difficult or create more paperwork or confusion. The ICS is a valuable tool that has a long history of being very successful in help managing critical incidents. We have just got to be able to use that tool in the right way. The incident command system represents best practices and has become the standard tool, the standardized system of managing crisis and disasters and high-impact incidents across the United States. It has also been used successfully at all levels of government: local, state, regional, county, towns, tribal, and even the military. Even non-governmental agencies and entities will use the incident command system. Also, many private sector, such as business and corporations, use the incident command system. So again, we can see it is a valuable and useful tool. And one of the reasons it is so successful is that it can be very flexible and used for all these different levels, entities, and organizations. ICS in its current form was developed due to a series of wildfires in the United States in the 1970s that led to millions of dollars in property damage, many injuries, and many deaths. Surprisingly, when they studied these incidents, they found out that two reasons we would think would lead to the confusion and issues that occurred, lack of resources and failure of tactics, was not the main reason that led to those failures. What they discovered is something that we all see, maybe even on a daily basis, was inadequate management was the main cause of communication failures, confusion, deaths, fatalities, destruction, something that we may see even in today's world on everyday responses: inadequate management. Even now, well into the 21st century, the same issues that we saw in the 70s of inadequate management continues to hinder us and hamper our operations. It's seldom the case in today's world that our first response agencies are not adequately trained to handle incidents, or that we will have a lack of resources. Even in a high impact or major incident, we will eventually get enough resources there, but all that will be for naught if we have the inadequate management. The reason why we have the incident command system now is because of those valuable lessons that were learned and those weaknesses that were identified that consisted of some of the following: lack of accountability, and this includes not having a clear chain of command. Every incident should have a clear chain of command, whether there's 2 resources or 200 resources there. Poor communications. Communications is still one of our #1 problems, and the incident command system will help us manage that. Also, the lack of an orderly, systematic planning process. On any type of large-scale disaster or high-impact situation, you have to have some type of planning that takes place, and you can't just do it on the fly. No pre-designated management structure. That's one of the major issues that was identified from those California wildfires. When you bring multiple agencies and resources in, not having an appropriate management structure will lead to all kinds of issues and problems. Also, we have to have a means of integrating all these different agencies that will come together to handle any type of incident, whether a plane crash, whether a flood, whether a school shooting. And the ICS will allow us to bring all those different agencies into one management structure to come to a successful conclusion of the incident. The efficient and effective application of the incident command system would manage all those weaknesses that we just discussed. But for that to happen, all jurisdiction agencies need to have a better understanding of the incident command system and recognize how we can realistically apply this to those events and situations that we're talking about. With the incident command system, we don't need the newest commander who just took his ICS class trying to apply this entire ICS org chart to a car wreck or a dumpster fire. On the other hand, we don't need the old school veteran trying to not do this for a major incident, not applying any incident command system at all. So both of those failures can lead us to having mission failure. Using those incident command system best management practices, ICS helps us to ensure 3 primary objectives. #1, the safety of responders and others. We have safety officers designated, we have accountability of our responders, we're keeping track of resources and victims. The achievement of our tactical objectives would be our second objective. We're going to come up with an objective on any type of incident, whether it's 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, or a car wreck. You're going to come up with objectives. If we use the ICS, or the Incident Command System, that allows all the agencies involved to have input into designating those objectives. Also, the efficient use of resources are our third objective. In today's world of limited budgets, limited resources, limited funding, ICS allows us to better integrate all these resources into one response. Decades after the implementation of the Incident Command System, when we have successful events, disasters, incidents, or even disaster exercises, we learn from those incidents that using ICS in the proper way led to a successful incident. We're also learning with any event, disaster, crisis, exercise, that if we did not have a successful response, one of the main reasons for that was the improper use or implementation of the Incident Command System. How small can ICS be? It can be as small as your incident requires. If you have one unit on the scene, one resource, whether that resource is one police car, one fire truck, one ambulance, or one rescue squad, the Incident Command System will allow you to manage that incident with those limited resources. The one position that we always have in ICS, no matter the size, scope, or scale, is the Incident Commander. In these incidents that may only have one resources or a very limited amount of resources, the Incident Command System allows those decision makers to make the right choices and will help them organize their thought processes and make sure that they do everything that they need to do for a successful conclusion. How large can it be? ICS can manage incidents with hundreds and even thousands of resources. ICS will help those decision makers make sure that they have the right people in the right places, they're ordering resources, staging those resources, making the right financial decisions, and all the other decisions that need to be made. So again, ICS can be for one resources or even hundreds or thousands of resources. One of the ways using ICS on larger incidents, as we can see from the org chart, is that ordering resources is very critical to the response. And I've been on incidents where one, no one ordered the resources that were needed because it fell through the cracks, or two, everyone is ordering multiple resources, which is an inefficient use of resources and costs way too much money. I can tell you personally that the expectation is when larger agencies come in, whether regionally, state, or even federal, that they will have ICS under control and will know how to implement and will help you implement. That may not always be the choice. So it's important for even the smallest agency to recognize how to use ICS and implement it, because you may need to help these other agencies that were told to respond to your scene or your incident or your disaster. We want to fold those guys into your Incident Command System, and it may take you doing that. You've probably seen this list before of all the type of incidents, fire, EMS, disasters, public health emergencies, et cetera, that can be managed utilizing the Incident Command System. So it is important to remember that almost any incident that occurs out there can be managed using the Incident Command System. Also, it's a key point to remember that non-emergency events are planned events, such as parades and protests and air shows and large sporting events, et cetera, can be managed using the Incident Command System. This slide represents what sometimes is the biggest hindrance of understanding the Incident Command System, and sometimes will even cause fear amongst agencies. I call this death by ICS. In the most basic ICS training available out there, these org charts, these organizational charts that you see represented that show dozens and hundreds of positions can actually cause us to not want to use ICS or avoid it at all costs. It's important to remember the majority of incidents out there do not get to the size, scope, and scale that is identified in these org charts on the slide. The main objective of ICS is to manage your scene and manage your resources. ICS is not designed as a fill-in-the-blank or fill-in-the-boxes system. You only utilize those resources that are necessary to manage your event or your incident. It's important to remember that the basic ICS concepts and principles will help us manage any different type of incident or event, whether it's a dumpster fire, a car wreck, a house fire, a plane crash, a hurricane, or even a pandemic event. The same principles apply to every type of situation, and we'll briefly discuss each one of these. The first principle we're going to discuss is common terminology. We could have multiple agencies from local, state, and federal responding to your scene. So common terminology allows all the different agencies to be on the same sheet of music. And that includes positions, titles. One example is a chief. An ICS, such as an operations section chief, is not the same as a chief of department. And there's sometimes a misunderstanding about what that means. And the one way to address that is with training on ICS. But again, common terminology is vital to a successful response. And it's important to remember that no matter how small your agency is or your jurisdiction is, you could have a large-scale incident or disaster occur in your community. And common terminology is going to help you solve that issue. The next principle we'll discuss is modular organization. As I stated earlier, ICS is a toolbox. You just use the positions and titles that you need. It is not a fill-in-the-blank, fill-in-the-box system. That modular organization allows you to fill in those positions that you need to fill to successfully manage your incident. This modular organization will allow you to expand rapidly in case of a major incident. If you have a tornado in your community, a train derailment, any type of mass casualty or high impact incident, you may normally be used to using the few resources available to your department, but you may need to quickly reach out to dozens and even hundreds of different agencies and resources. Using this modular organization allows you to very rapidly and successfully fold them into your response. The lessons learned from every disaster that we have, and even major disaster exercise, show us that communications is one of our #1 failures. Also, the loss of life of responders at incidents is always identified as one of the primary reasons being lack of proper communications. So, ICS provides us with an integrated communication systems. That has nothing to do with radios. That's bringing all the individuals and agencies together to put us on the same sheet of music to communicate. Also, if we're talking about radios and other type of technology, ICS allows you to fold all these into the same response. Integrated communications will allow us to have a successful response every single time. We've all been at incidents, seen, read, heard, or even experienced where we had communications failures, even on small incidents or big incidents. One thing that happens when you have multiple agencies is you may have a single command post here and a single command post here. And these two agencies are not communicating, which can lead to communications breakdown and even responder safety issues. ICS allows us to integrate those communications up to the point of having different radio channels, different radio systems, and different technology methods. ICS will allow you to integrate those into one communication system so we have a successful and safe response. When you have a large-scale incident, you will have multiple agencies responding to your scene. Unity of command means that a responder reports to just one leader. One example is this: if a responder is running across the scene and someone who's not in his chain of command grabs him and advises him to do something else, we've now lost unity of command. So again, the principle of unity of command is that each responder responds or listens to one leader, one commander, and that's identified verbally and in writing. One of the key issues that we learn after every major incident is freelancing. Unity of command will help prevent the freelancing that occurs on scenes where individuals are making their own decisions on how to manage things. If we follow ICS, this will prevent that from happening. Probably one of the most critical principles of ICS is what's called unified command. This is designed to manage multiple agencies that all need to make key decisions and have input into the response. Whether you have 1, 2, 3, or even 4 agencies that need to be represented in the command post, unified command allows that to happen. That allows each agency that has a key role to play to have input into objectives that are being written, tactics that are being decided, resources that are being identified. Unified command is essential to a safe and successful response of a multi-agency incident. Even smaller day-to-day incidents require a unified command because you may have 2 or 3 different agencies there. I'll use the example of a vehicle crash or a traffic accident. You're going to have law enforcement, fire, and EMS on the scene. We all have the same responsibilities: life safety and incident stabilization. We all need to work together to identify those issues, clean up the scene, get the roads back open in a safe and efficient manner. So EMS has separate things they need to do. Fire department has separate things they need to do. And law enforcement has different things they need to do. They will all utilize different tactics to do this. But integrated communications on the same sheet of music, planning and making decisions together can all be done through unified command. Unified command may seem obvious, But this is something that we continue to struggle with decades after the implementation of ICS, and all the long training and exercise that we've done, we still have failures when it comes to unified command. Unified command is very simple, bringing those multiple agencies together into one location and talking face to face and making decisions together. Another critical component of ICS is what we refer to as the incident action plan. This does not mean that on every single incident that you respond to that you need to have a large written or typed comprehensive plan. All you're doing is identifying those key objectives that need to happen and the tactics that you're going to do it with. That is identified in an incident action plan. On a larger incident, this will be written out, this will be typed up, and that allows all the different agencies to come together into this plan to identify those objectives, those resources, the strategy and tactics, who's involved. This happens on every incident that you respond to every day. The key component is getting all the different agencies onto the same incident action plan. The incident action plan could be as simple as 3 different agencies verbally agreeing how they're going to manage a small incident. Or it could be as large as a 100-page written or typed document to address a major incident or disaster. But the key function is those decisions are being made in a unified command setting, because we have seen on any type of incident when these different agencies are not on the same sheet of music that it can lead to failures and breakdowns. Span of control is a very critical component to the incident command system. What that means is how many people can a leader or incident commander successfully handle or manage on his own. The typical designation is that I can handle 3 to 5 individuals or 3 to 5 resources before we need to expand the incident command system. This may or may not be true. It depends on the resources, the type of incident, and the leader. It comes down to personal decisions on how many resources can I safely and successfully manage. If I need to expand, the incident command system will allow us to expand that manageable span of control. So this is when we may need to expand or build the incident command system or scale it back. In my experience, on larger incidents and even smaller incidents, there may be a reluctance to expand the incident or say that you need help. But there is no fire scene where one person can handle 100 firefighters on their own. There's no law enforcement scene where one person can handle 100 police officers or deputies on their own. To have a successful chain of command, to have a unity of command, you've got to have a manageable span of control. And this will require a personal decision to expand the incident. Designated facilities is another important component or principle of the incident command system. What this means is you may require different resources and locations to manage your incident. And you may hear terms like camps and bases and landing zones and things like that. Probably the 2 most important facilities that would be on any incident is 1, a command post. You should always have a command post, whether you have 1 resource or 100 resources on scene. Also a staging area. It's important on any incident, especially when you have multiple resources coming, is you establish a staging area. But using ICS, it allows us to recognize as different agencies and entities what those designated facilities are and how we will implement them. The most important facility that we should have on every incident is the command post. We've all been on incidents where we didn't know where the command post was at, who was in command, or who was even in the command post. Also, in some responses, the incident commanders, which that means the command post, tend to wander around and we can't find them. Once a command post is established, that command post needs to stay in the same spot so everyone knows where it's at, which leads to a better incident command system. Comprehensive resource management is one of the important functions of ICS. This means managing your people and your resources, or what we would call beans and bullets. One example is if there's multiple agencies on the scene and they all order the same resources. This is a duplication of effort, not a good use of resources, and in today's world, not a good use of funding. So comprehensive resource management allows all the agencies to come together to make decisions on what resources we need, who's going to order them, and where we're going to put them, and who's going to be in control of those resources. Resource management is important for several reasons. In the initial response to any incident, you are not going to have enough resources and you're going to be calling for those resources. At some point, you're going to hit the right mix of resources on the scene. Once that happens, you're now going to start having too many resources. And this occurs on any type of incident. Once you have too many resources, those resources are not being used wisely. So we've got to be able to do what's start demobbing these resources, sending resources back into their normal duties. So we want to have comprehensive resource management, and we don't want to spend the resources in the wrong way. The media. In today's world, this is a vital component to your response. We've got to be able to communicate information. And the days of only doing one media briefing in a 12-hour period are not applicable anymore. So ICS helps us address this. How does it do it? We have PIOs, public information officers. Also in our incident action plans, we can put media statements in there. This is very important to getting information out to the public, our leaders, our elected officials, and other individuals. It's very important to use that public information officer. Sometimes there is the tendency in smaller agencies that do not have PIOs designated is maybe the chief officer or the incident commander, whether it's a fire EMS or law enforcement response, trying to communicate with the media and the public. With using PIOs, you can bring in credentialed and trained and experienced PIOs to your incident using the ICS. Media relations has become a 24/7 nonstop cycle. Using the PIO system that's available to us from ICS allows you to address such issues as Facebook, social media, tweeting, texting, multiple press briefings, phone calls, and other things that the incident commander is not going to be able to successfully handle. Most of us are not trained public information officers, and the demand in today's media world is constant coverage. So one way we can remove this load from the incident commander's shoulder is to establish and identify these public information officers who can handle this topic. During any incident, we may bring a lot of different agencies together, and that means bringing a lot of different strong egos together. Using ICS allows us to address those issues, bring those egos together, and get us all on the same sheet of music. So again, ICS can help identify those issues and address those issues when it comes to the egos that we all know they're out there. I think it's important to discuss law enforcement and the incident command system. Some law enforcement agencies utilize the incident command system on a daily basis and on all major disaster type incidents, and are excellent practitioners of the incident command system. Some utilize ICS only on big disasters or high impact incidents, and they may or may not be that effective with it. Some of the agencies, and the ones maybe we need to be a little more concerned about, are the agencies that say they will only use ICS on the big one, or the large-scale disasters, and they never use ICS on the day-to-day activities. So what this means is they don't have a lot of experience with the incident command system, and most likely will not use it on a major disaster. Or if they do use the incident command system, they're going to do a terrible job of it. Which brings up a good point. Even on those calls where we do not mobilize a large-scale incident command system or organizational chart, we need to be thinking about how could we apply ICS methodology and principles to this response. Now, this does not mean these law enforcement agencies or any other agency are not doing a good job. They do an excellent job at performing law enforcement duties and operations. Why I think this happens, especially with law enforcement agencies, is the nature of law enforcement requires most calls to be handled by maybe one or two deputies or officers. And they need to get those calls resolved as quick as possible and move on to the next call. So this is not very conducive to large-scale type of incidents or utilizing ICS with other agencies. So this can lead to a communication and coordination breakdown when these law enforcement agencies respond with other agencies to a large-scale incident. There's a saying of how we train is how we fight. So the habit of not using ICS on our everyday or smaller incidents may lead to more issues with the high-impact incidents where it's imperative and very important that we use the incident command system. When an incident commander or a unified command assigns individual leadership roles utilizing the incident command system, you need to give them the breathing room. Do not micromanage these resources. Once you've assigned them these positions or these tasks, allow them to conduct their mission. That's why we're assigning them, because the span of control requires it. Public safety and emergency response is a very hands-on type of job. But when you have a larger scale incident and you're starting to expand the incident command system, It's very important that we need to learn to back off and let these individuals make the decisions they need to make. Because if I'm the incident commander, I've got all these individuals working for me, and they're in that position for a reason. ICS does require training and experience to successfully use it during a crisis or a chaotic situation. The key issue is, though, it's very difficult to put someone into the incident command system who is not familiar with the incident command system or who has never used it before, especially if you're going to try to put them into a command or leadership role. ICS is also not compatible with day-to-day functions within your agencies. There may be changes, and this is difficult for some entities and agencies and individuals. Example, a chief of your normal day-to-day agency may not be an operations section chief. So we've got to recognize this, and the only way to do that is with training and exercises. If you've ever been on a scene, and we all have, that fell apart due to the lack of leadership because of a lack of the incident command system, this will make you a true believer within the ICS. When the current version of the incident command system that we're now using was established in 2004 as the national standard, this was required of all agencies to accept and implement this incident command system to receive Homeland Security grant funding and other type of federal grant funding. This is still not occurring for a lot of different agencies. Also, for decades and decades, there were different types of the incident command system that were being used by different disciplines. Even now, when we're all supposed to be under the same incident command system, or NIMS, National Incident Management System type of ICS, we still have different agencies that are using different versions of the incident command system. What we all know is when agencies do not use the incident command system to manage any type of incident, especially multi-agency or high-impact type of incidents, this can lead to confusion, serious injury or issues, and death and injury of responders or the public. What happens then is agencies will typically fall back on and rely on experience, standard operating guidelines and procedures, and even tradition. And this can lead to a lot of different issues. For ICS to be effective and efficient, everyone needs to be operating within that framework and on the same sheet of music using the same type of the incident command system. This can really be an issue for smaller agencies that have been able to get by maybe without using the incident command system on incidents or emergencies. So what needs to happen at this point, these agencies seriously need to consider training and experience on the incident command system. If ICS is used on a regular or even daily basis, the expanding of the system to manage a larger scale or disaster type of event should go very smoothly. We've all been taught in the public safety professions that we should always be what-ifing, worst case scenarios and likely scenarios that can happen. So one of the things we can do is what if ICS? On the most routine basic calls, how would we use ICS? And this will help us implement it down the road at those actual real incidents or larger scale incidents. No matter how big or small your jurisdiction is, we know that every community, even the smallest community out there, has some type of public event that occurs in your community. This would be an excellent opportunity to utilize the incident command system and build things like org charts and resource lists and communication resource lists. These can include parades, protests, major sporting events, festivals, air show, and all other type of planned events that do occur on a regular basis in your community. Even if you utilize the incident command system for your small community or small town homecoming or Christmas parade, this is an excellent opportunity to use all the components and principles of the incident command system. This includes assigning an incident commander or unified command, building that org chart that we've discussed, establishing those objectives, ordering resources, and building that incident action plan. This may seem like a lot of work, or you may be doing more work than may seem necessary, but this is really building the experience and knowledge and capabilities to utilize the incident command system. As you can see here, there's a wide variety of ICS classes that are available to you. Also, this is not even the complete list of ICS training that's available to all the different jurisdictions and agencies. The important thing to do is not just completing all the ICS classes, but using this ICS in your other training, when you're conducting your drills, training, no matter what type of agency you are, fire, EMS, law enforcement, or any other public safety agency or entity, utilize the incident command system when you're doing your classes, when you're doing your training. In most communities, every year annually, there are exercises or disaster drills of some form or fashion. This is an excellent opportunity to utilize the incident command system and practice using it. This can be done through tabletop exercise, functional drills, full-scale exercises. Example, if you have a hospital in your community, they are required to do disaster drills. If you have an airport in your community, big or small, they are required to do disaster drills every 3 years. This and many other examples will provide you the opportunity and experience of using ICS. Even in smaller jurisdictions, when you have weekly or monthly meetings, even in the smallest volunteer agencies or entities, when you come together for meetings, talk about how you could use ICS for these worst case and what if scenarios. Every community and region should have some kind of disaster plan, what we call a multi-hazard or all-hazard plan. Those are now required to utilize the incident command system in those plans. Yet I still find and see plans that do not have ICS involved in them. Also, you can address ICS in your SOPs or your SOGs, and this will help you utilize ICS on a more daily or regular basis. You may not know this, but in your region, your jurisdiction, your county, there is some type of disaster plan, that all-hazard or multi-hazard plan that I talked about, that's usually developed by some type of emergency management entity. It's important for you to find this plan and be familiar with it, because I can guarantee it, your department may be listed in there as a key component or principal to this response. An excellent way to also start building the incident command system into your daily operations is to start framing your SOPs and SOGs using the incident command system. And this will make us more familiar with the terminology in the operations. One way I think we can try to avoid the death by ICS and the ginormous organizational charts and the thought of hundreds of resources being on the scene is just trying to implement what I would call ICS Lite. Majority of our incidents you could probably address using this structure or something similar to it. Remember, number one, the one position we should have on every incident, no matter kind or type, is the incident commander or a unified command, which just means we have 2 or 3 agencies there. Also, most incidents, we are doing some type of function or task, so we need to have someone doing operations. From there, we can build out the response as we need, expand as we need, but let's focus on a command post, an incident commander, or a unified command, bringing those other agencies in and designating those operations that need to take place. If we need to start looking at all the other tasks, positions, and requirements, we can start doing that, but that's a lot easier to do once we've established ICS Lite, and that allows us all to speak with one voice. Within the ICS framework, there are literally dozens and hundreds of different documents and reports and pieces of paper that you could use. What I want us all to focus on under ICS Lite is one form, what's called the Incident Briefing Form. This is called the 201 form. Again, there's many others, but let's focus on the 201 form. This can help you on every single call you go on. Every traffic accident, every law enforcement call, every medical call. There's a few key answers that you have to answer on the 201 form. This form, you can hand write it. It's available in electronic format. I'd even be glad to send it to you if you want it. The few key things that go on the 201 form is a scene map and sketch that you can quickly draw. What's a situation summary? What are we doing right now? What's happening? What are our current planned objectives? Secure the area, stop the hazmat leak, put out the fire, and then those tactics and actions we're going to use to make that objective happen. Also, current org chart. Are there 3 people on scene, 13 or 30? You will identify who they are and what they're doing, and then a resources summary. This sheet of paper is a lifesaver. Number one, it doesn't take very long to do. Number two, it will help you identify everything you need to do on any type of incident if you answer these questions. Number three, we all have to do a report. Every incident you go on, you do a report. This 201 form will allow you to gather that information you need that will go into your report. We all know that every incident, from the most minor to the biggest, worst disaster that ever happens, does have requirements that will take place after, including investigations, including after action or hot washes and debriefs of the incident. So I would prefer that you had all this information written down or typed versus what you're trying to remember days, weeks, months, and years down the road. This course is designed as a food for thought workshop and to foster thought and discussion within your agency on the practical and realistic use of the incident command system. Every incident that occurs has the same principles and functions that need to be addressed, whether it's large or small. We could utilize an elaborate incident command system with dozens and hundreds of agencies and individuals on scene, like we can see here with a large org chart. Or we may have an incident that has 1 or 2 individuals on the scene, and we would utilize the Incident Command System Lite to manage it. The most effective management tool given to public safety agencies in the past 50 years is the Incident Command System. Don't be afraid to use it on every incident, big or small, because it is a very effective and efficient tool. But ICS has been and is abused, misapplied, misunderstood, overutilized, and underutilized. But applied appropriately is very useful.